Welcome to the Possibility Action Network podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Middleton, aka Possibility Man. We're committed to bringing you guests who strive through better people's lives and serve as a force for good in the world. Our guest today is Jay Izzo. He is widely known as the Internet Doctor and as an inspirational edutainer. He's a renowned speaker who addresses conferences on Wall Street, at business meetings, and various sports teams. His singular message is how to get unstuck and move forward in life and business. Jay is also a radio personality and a podcast host, and he has a master's degree in experimental psychology and is the author of several books. Jay, you have been busy. Welcome to the show today.
Thanks, Stephen. Mr. Possibility Man. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Okay. Look, we're all about possibility here, and I'm curious to know, where did you grow up, and when did you, in high school, did you see yourself doing the kinds of things that you do today?
Oh, Stephen, this is a story. Okay, this is a story. I was born in New Jersey, and then I was raised in a town of 119 people in Nebraska. And I worked on farms and ranches in the state of Nebraska growing up my whole life. So I grew up, that picture behind me here, that's how I grew up: belt buckles, boots, cowboy hats. And when I was growing up, Stephen, I will be honest with you, I did not know what my path was going to be. Even when I went to college and grad school, and I'm ABD technically, so I'm all but dissertation. So I've done all my coursework in psychology, and I did not, and mostly in industrial organizational, and I did not see me doing what I'm doing now. And I tell this to people when I go speak to people all over, is that don't let your degree determine what you're going to do.
Yeah.
Because when you find your God-given gifts, talents, and abilities, and you unleash those passions, and you unleash the things that excite you, and you're using those very gifts that you've been given, and you find them, then you start doing things that you love doing, and it's amazing. And that's been, that for the last several years, I've been helping people find their natural gifts, talents, and abilities, and finding their purpose in life. And when you start to find your purpose, and you realize that what I'm doing is what I've been gifted to do, and I am helping people achieve something so much greater than me.
Yeah.
Holy cow, Stephen. It all of a sudden, everything that you thought mattered didn't matter.
Yeah. At
that point. And so that's a little brief history of the story, but I never did. I never thought I'd be doing this. This wasn't in my book written anywhere when I was writing the story, but I do think this, it was written in a story. It just wasn't the one that I thought I was going to write.
I got you. And, you've touched upon it, but I just want to underscore it. What you're saying is that what you're meant to do is already in you, right? And
right.
That's the discovery, isn't it? Discovering what's in you. Yeah, that's awesome. So when did you become the Internet Doctor?
Oh, that's so funny. So here's the thing. When I was first trying to figure out what I was trying to do, okay, that registered trade, by the way, it's a registered trademark with the United States government. It's a registered trademark. What happened was I've always been an early adopter of technology, and I was certainly an early adopter of internet technology. So whether that was when I learned how to write my own websites, when Facebook first came out, I was into it, and I don't care what it's been. So I don't do much with TikTok, but I want to see what's going on. And I was always interested in the psychology of the internet, the psychology of social media. I was so fascinated by what people did in it. So I had to come up with something, that was kind of a, trademarky that I could use. So I went to the United States government and I applied for a registered trademark for internet doctor. And here's the funny thing. You cannot trademark the word internet and you cannot trademark the word doctor. And nobody ever had tried to trademark them before together.
Wow.
And so I trademarked them. I literally got a call from the United States Attorney General's office going, help us understand what this is that you're doing. And so I told them, I said, this is what I'm doing. I'm trying to help people understand the internet. And that was where I got started. I still hold the trademark. I don't do much with that anymore. I go by Coach Jay most of the time now, but but I still hold that trademark. And that's kind of how this all got started. But I think that's part of the journey. Internet doctor is part of my journey of self-discovery of what I was supposed to do, because I don't think coaching Mavericks and a New Direction show and I don't think any of that really happens if I don't go along that journey of trying to figure out where it is I fit and what I do well.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, I like it. I like the internet doctor.
Oh,
You've already mentioned there are two other monikers that you wear, and I'm going to touch on those real quick.
Mm-hmm.
You are also known as the inspirational edutainer. I've never heard that before.
Edutainer. Yeah, I'm an edutainer. Yeah, it means educational and entertaining. So I stand about 6'4", 6'5", somewhere in there. So when I speak before people, I'm fairly imposing, and because I go about 245, 250 pounds, and so I'm fairly imposing. But I'm also there was a part of me that wanted to be a stand-up comedian. Mm-hmm. And the problem is when you want to be a stand-up comedian, Stephen, if you're going to be successful at it, you have to be funny. And sadly, I thought I was funny, but audiences didn't. So when you're not making people laugh, you're not going to be a stand-up comedian. And I actually gave it a try for a while. But what I found was that when I speak, that I could fit in little funny things in my talks that could make it entertaining. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, but I always wanted to be educational. I always wanted to leave people with something that they could go, wow, yeah. That's me, or I never thought about that, or, and I always know that a little sense of humor goes a long way in helping us learn.
Yeah.
And I learned that along the way. There's something about a smile that changes us. There's something about a silly little thing that we say that can change us around. And so that's where the edutaining thing, and I was just, I never took a speech class. I never I don't even know what Toastmasters really do. I kind of do, but I've never been to one. And it was one of those things where, again, it was a gift that I found along the way, that I had this gift to be on stage and speak to people and take the years of accumulated knowledge and study that I still do, because I read a book a week for my show.
Wow.
Right. So I read about 60 books a year is what I read. And it was taking everything that I've learned and keep applying it back to people in my coaching practice, and then taking it to a world and finding a way that I could touch a world in an entertaining and educational way, which is edutaining.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Now, last moniker that you wear is that of a Maverick coach. Mm-hmm. How did that come to you?
Yeah, well, I'm a bit of a Maverick. Mm-hmm. So what that means is I kind of don't do anything that you're supposed to do. I don't follow rules very well. I don't do things in an orthodox way. I'm really unbranded. And that's where that comes from, is that, the original term of Maverick comes from Sam Maverick back in Texas, who had cattle that were unbranded and they wandered the range. And I'm like that. I'm an unbranded guy. I do things in kind of my own unique way. And then I started thinking about it. And the truth of us, we're all that way, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
Aren't we all unique, Stephen?
Yeah, indeed.
Don't you, I mean, right? Nobody, you don't want to be branded. You know, it's going, I fit, you know, no. You're your own man. You know, Stephen, you're your own man. You're your own guy. You're your own person, and you're doing things in your own way. And I want to help people find that inside of them.
Mm-hmm.
What is it? What is your maverick? Where is that maverick, right? Because here's the easy thing to do. If we watch social media very closely, and I do watch it, but here's what we do. We tend to look at everybody's lifestyle, and we start doing this comparison thing, and we start going, I want to be like that. No, you don't. No, you don't. I want to be like Steve Jobs. No, you don't.
Yeah.
Because can I tell you something, Steve? Here's the beautiful thing, right? And this came to me. You cannot purchase the Mona Lisa. It's worth millions upon millions of dollars in the Louvre. Can't purchase it.
Mm-hmm.
But for about $5, $6, you can buy a copy.
Right. See the point.
Right.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah.
Do I want to be like Steve? No, I don't want to be like Steve Jobs. I don't want to be a copy of Steve Jobs. Mm-hmm. I want to be the best Jay Izzo. I want you to be the best Steve Middleton, right? That's Stephen, that's who I want you to be. Right. And that's who I'm trying to pull out of people. Who are you in there?
I got you. Yeah. But a lot of people look at you, Jay, and they say, look, you've already mentioned you're 6'4", you're this big guy, you were this high school athlete, you got a college scholarship to play football. Yeah. And it was just smooth sailing for you right out of the gate.
No.
So what's the real story?
No.
How was it like for you at Doane University?
Oh, gosh. I would say to people, this all looks good right now, but it wasn't that way. First of all, I grew up in a lower middle class home, town of 190 people. We didn't have much. We had food on the table. We had one car that Dad took to work, and he had several jobs growing up. I can remember Christmases that didn't have much of anything, if anything. I remember having to talk my way into college because I didn't do well in high school. And I had to actually talk my way into college. I actually showed up in a pair of blue jeans and a t-shirt to Doane University, and literally trying to convince the admissions director to let me in. And my high school football coach, I told him what I wanted to do, and he said, I'll send him some film. And I was an okay football player. I wasn't a great football player. I was okay. And I talked my way into college. And I had never been away from home. And I messed up big time. My first semester at Doane, my GPA was 0.67 or 0.75. It wasn't even a 1. Because I just never been away from home. And it was a big world, and there was a lot to do, and none of it was what I should have been doing. And I hit pretty much the lowest point. One of the low points. I've had several low points in my life, but that was one of them. And I remember going home at Christmas to see Dad and Mom. I didn't want to go. And I remember Dad, we had this brown couch that Dad liked to take a nap on in the afternoon when he was home from work. And I walked in the door, and I remember Dad looking at me and saying, because he had my grades, and he said, hey, maybe Doane's not for you. Maybe you ought to think about a trade school or something else. And I remember I could not, how much it hit me so hard. I mean, it hurt so bad, Stephen. To this day, I can still feel it. And And I don't know where the words came from, but something came out of my mouth that said, no, Dad, I'm going to fix this. I didn't know how. I just said, I'll fix this. And so when I enrolled back the very next semester, a guy by the name of Dr. Tom Johnson took me under his wing, and we changed. I worked with him every day. We worked really Tuesdays and Thursdays, but initially it was every day. But every Tuesday and Thursday, I'd see him at 9 o'clock in the morning for class, worked on taking notes, held me accountable. And, and I did. And then all of a sudden, that work helped me. And I finished my last semesters on the dean's list. I was actually like over a 4.0.
Wow.
By the end. And then, I got married in there at 19, and that was silly. And because we ended up getting divorced. And while we were in grad school, that was another low point, and left grad school after finishing all my coursework for my doctorate. Finished my coursework, and I came out to North Carolina on my own, not knowing anybody, because I went to take a job because I had a kid and I needed to support that child. And so I worked for North Carolina State University, doing as a sports academic coordinator and sports site guy. And they were low moments, and struggling to get by. I wasn't making that much money. And then after 4 years of doing that, they asked me if I would resign, and they said, we got some, we need to make some cutbacks and some changes. So I resigned. They gave me my 3 or 4 months of, I had coming to me, looked for a job, couldn't get a job. This is in 1996. And I remember it was September of 1996. We had a hurricane here in North Carolina called Hurricane Fran. I had no money. I'd run out of money. I was asking my person I was renting from apartment. I asked them if they could just be patient. I would find a way to pay them back, but I couldn't pay rent. And the hurricane came. I borrowed a chainsaw from a friend, and I was cutting trees in pieces so I could roll them out, like 400, 500-pound logs, and rolling them out to the street from people's yards, and was doing whatever I had to do to make some money just so I could get by. And then that ran out. And I was doing all sorts of odd jobs and just trying to figure out how to make it. And I was frustrated, and it was a pretty low point, Stephen. It was pretty low at that point. It was where I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't have any answers.
Yeah.
I didn't know where to turn. And, I did have my faith, I had my belief, but I had a lot of doubt. And I happened to meet a woman who was extraordinarily successful. And for whatever reason, she loved me. She's been my wife. We're going to be married 25 years next year. And she loved me unconditionally. And I said, I've got nothing to bring to the table. And she said, oh, you got a lot to bring to the table, because you can help me be better. And so I walked into her real estate business at that point and tried to apply everything that I knew to help her grow her company and be bigger. And one thing led to another. And, I was still searching. And even during our marriage, there were low points in my life. I was depressed. I couldn't figure out what to do. Life just was empty, didn't have much meaning for me. And, literally, I finally just gave up and surrendered and said, I don't know what to do. And she encouraged me to write a book. I wrote a book, my first book. And then another one came, and another one came. And then I started finding out that, I got this gift to speak. And so I started speaking, and then I got this gift to coach, and I coach people. And at the same time, I was doing all these shows like this about the books that I had written, and people would say, man, you're really good on camera and you're really good on the studio. And all of a sudden that started leading to, oh gosh, maybe I've got something here.
Mm.
And then all of a sudden I started finding, oh my gosh, I have this gift. I've got this gift and I got this gift. And then I was like going, well, why don't you just lean to your gifts? And as I was leaning into my gifts, all of a sudden things weren't going as fast as I wanted them to, but I was sure a lot more happy and grateful.
Mm-hmm.
And I started getting grateful. And I started realizing even in my misery, I could be grateful. Mm. Even at my lowest points, I could be grateful. And there was a lot to be grateful for. And I needed to stop being miserable. And I needed to stop being depressed. And I needed to stop feeling sorry for myself. I needed to stop thinking I was a victim. I needed to stop thinking that, that it was somebody else's fault. I needed to stop doing what I was doing and go, well, what are you? And get some self-awareness. And then that changed. And it changed me. Yeah. And I changed because my mindset started changing. Mm-hmm. And then I started figuring out what my core values, what do you really believe? Mm-hmm. Deep down in here, not here. No, here. What do you believe? Yeah. What's really true about you? Mm-hmm. And what are you compromising? And what won't you compromise? Mm-hmm. And that started changing it.
Yeah, I could see that, because just looking at as I studied you, you've turned it around a few times. You certainly turned it around with Don't. So, you speak about personal and professional development, leadership, success. So I was trying to dig into your early experience, Jay, and how did they inform you? Let's go back to Doane.
Sure.
University. What was it that really got you to? I know your father, your teacher, but what was it that turned you around? What was it? Can you identify it for us?
Yeah, it wasn't. First of all, it was taking accountability for your actions. I think having somebody hold me accountable, because I've always said I've been coachable, and so I've always been willing to let other people coach me. Yeah. So I think a lot of people, what happens is they try to dig themselves out of the hole rather than to get someone else to help you hold a shovel. Mm-hmm. And so having somebody, and then realizing actually they weren't holding the shovel, they actually brought another shovel with them and are helping you dig out. But I had to go after that. They didn't just show up. I had to seek it. Yeah. Right. But to me, the biggest turnaround was 8 years ago. Because I didn't discover any of this till I was after 50.
Wow. Okay. That's encouraging. But look, I want to go back to Doane for just one moment. Yeah. Now, I know that you gave, I think it was a graduation talk.
Yeah, I did.
At your alma mater. What was that like? And do you recall what you shared with the students?
Oh gosh, yeah. Oh yeah, no. I live by it. Matter of fact, the talk is entitled "More Than a Story: An Extraordinary Life," and that's the name of the talk. And the truth of the matter is, I remember telling my story, and how that when I was telling people my story about Doane, and even before, because I was a farm boy and farm hand, and being at Doane and that story. But here's the thing, that some of the lessons that we learn, we don't really understand till later in life. And, there's three things that I tell people all the time, and you'll hear it in the talk, but this is three of my core values. You're in control of three things in your life at all times: your attitude, your effort, and your resilience. Getting back up again. And that's the truth. It doesn't matter what the circumstances are, because I've let this happen where I've had a bad attitude because of my circumstances. But then I've had bad circumstances, but I've had a good attitude, and my circumstances didn't matter because I control it. I wake up every day with it. Do I want, what's my attitude going to be today? That's on me.
Yeah.
And then 2 is your effort. What are you going to give? How excellent are you going to be today? I mean, I don't care what you do, right? I don't care what it is. I don't care if you are sweeping floors or if you're behind the register at a checkout counter at a grocery store, or you're the CEO of a major corporation. How excellent are you going to be today? Because you determine that.
Right. Yeah.
By the way, I cannot judge your effort, Stephen.
Yeah.
I can't.
Mm.
People will say, oh, he or she didn't give very good effort. Well, you don't know that.
Yeah.
The reality is, Stephen, the only person who knows how excellent you are is you. Because I cannot really determine that, because I don't know what else is going on. Right? I mean, how many times have we seen something in somebody? And I'll never forget the story. I heard this. It was Chuck Swindoll. And he said that one time he was doing a couples conference down in Plano, Texas. And he said this couple showed up, and she, the wife, was all in tune and, was just trying to absorb everything. Meanwhile, her husband was sleepy, wasn't paying much attention. And this went on for 3 days. And so the end of the conference, he wanted to catch up with her and said, I'm really proud of you. You did your work. And, I could tell that you're really trying hard. And she said, oh, thank you so much. She said, she goes, my husband really wanted to be here, but he got cancer.
Oh, okay.
And I'll never forget when he said it was a dagger, because he misjudged that person's effort. He misjudged the person. And so often what we do, Stephen, is we judge the outside of things that we see, but you don't really know.
Yeah.
So the only person that can determine your effort and your excellence is you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. That reminds me, I want to come back to that.
Yeah, sure.
Because that reminds me of Stephen Covey's, one of his, when he said in Habits of the Highly Successful, similar story. But I want to roll back to you. And I just sit here marveling, Jay, because, I had no idea that you would be so transparent. You mentioned that, you had some adversity in college. Yeah. You mentioned, going through a divorce. You mentioned having been depressed, not knowing what to do. And so I got to ask you, there's so many men, especially successful men, who, don't want anyone to know that they face any stuff in their life. At what point did you come to this place where you could be transparent about those kinds of things?
I think what happens is we all claim that we have integrity. And we all claim that we are honest. We all want to think we're honest people. But then when you're trying to lead a life that's not you, and you put on the happy, smiley face, but deep down you're hurting, you're not being honest. And to me, Stephen, I want people to know my pain that I went through. I want people to know the hurt, because here's what I know. And we hadn't talked about third one, resiliency.
Yeah.
Here's what I know. I know that there is someone who's going to watch this show. And they may be a man, they may be a woman. And they're watch the show and they're going, I don't know that I want to take another step. And I know that my pain, my vulnerability, my hurts, my fears, my doubts, my sadness is part of my journey, not for me. It's for them. Because I had to go through every one of those things in order to be able to hear someone say to me, I'm hurting, and I can say, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
Because you see, we can be empathetic, but how much more empathy can I have towards someone if I've walked in those shoes.
Yeah.
If I know what it's like to want to crawl up into a ball in the corner of your room and weep uncontrollably.
Mhm.
If I can't, I'm having a hard time just trying to get out of bed.
Mhm.
If I'm putting a smile on someone else, on my face for someone else, when deep down I am in so much pain
Mhm.
emotionally, that I am confused mentally, that I don't know what the next step, that spiritually I feel broken,
Yeah.
that I keep trying to give somebody something that's really not there. And I'm trying, but I myself go home broken every day.
Mhm.
I understand it.
Yeah.
I understand the divorce. I understand the pain of it. I understand the pain of a divorce and then running a child back and forth between two families.
Mhm.
Matter of fact, let me tell you how rough it was. I was on one coast, she was on the other
Wow.
with a 2-year-old.
Mhm.
I understand that pain as a parent.
Yeah.
I also understand as a man, because I am one, I understand the pride and ego that tries to protect itself because it doesn't want to let anybody know that they've been wounded or hurt. And they build this outer shell of ego that says, I'm my own man, dang it, and I'm tougher than nails, and no, that's not the way we solve it, guys. Guys, you want to solve it? Be real about your pain. Be able to go to somebody and go, I'm hurting. I'm hurting. I'm in pain. Right? I mean, that's the truth. And I know as a coach to men and women, by the way. Matter of fact, most of my clients, I think, or is it you split? It's pretty close. I think it's mostly women, but I think I'm about 55, 45 men, women to men. And it's being honest where we're at.
Yeah.
You cannot, Stephen, you cannot get to the next step if you are not completely and totally honest where this is where I am right now. You cannot get to tomorrow if you don't become honest. This is where I am.
Mhm.
And this is the reality.
Yeah.
And you don't and you hate it, but you don't know what to do about it. And you need somebody to talk to, and you need to talk.
Yeah.
Let's get it out.
Right. Yeah, that's a wonderful thing. What I hear you say is, is that your life experience can be in service when you share with somebody
Oh,
else.
yeah. Absolutely.
That's a beautiful thing, Jay. Now, look, I know that as a speaker and as a coach, I was just intrigued about the kinds of things that your focus. They include to help people. And I want to do the one by one, if that's okay with you. Because when I said you said you work with people who want to grow physically, and there are people who want to grow physically, but they don't know how to do that. But tell us about that. How do you work with someone who wants to grow physically?
Yeah, right. Okay. So I've always been a guy who has done physical work, whether it was on the farm or playing football or whatever. I've always been in the gym. I still work out, I don't know, almost 6 days a week if I can. I try to work out 6 days a week. I know that we are 4-part people. We're physical, mental, emotional, spiritual people. And the physical is really, really important because if you're not taking care of your body physically, well, then the rest really don't matter. I mean, you could be mentally, you could say that you're mentally on top of your game, but if you're physically in pain, right, or you're unable to move, right, it affects your mental, emotional, and your spiritual. And so the years I've spent working out, and I was a personal trainer even. There was a moment in there where I was a personal trainer and trying to make money. And I know that working on the physical part of you is really important, which means 4 things. I talk about 4 things. 1, your exercise, which, by the way, we can all do something.
Yeah.
You could get out and walk and get your blood pumping. You don't have to go. You don't have to have a gym membership to get your blood pumping. Get out and walk. right? Do some push-ups, and if you can't do them from your toes, get on your knees and do some push-ups, stretch, right? Do some sit-ups, right? Move your body, all right? So exercise, and then eating right. Gosh, folks, I understand that we have these places on the highways and in the cities where you can drive through and grab a bag of something with a Coke or whatever, and it's convenient. But do you realize how much garbage is in there that you're putting in your body when you do that? So we got to make better choices when we eat, right? And we because we have a country here in the United States that's overweight. We have a lot of diabetes in this country because of being overweight. We have all sorts of health issues because we're overweight. And it's because of the choices we put into our body. Listen, I like pizza too. I think it's delicious. I think it's the greatest food in the world. I love pizza. But I got to tell you something. Can't do it. Got to say no.
Yeah.
Right? And then here's the other thing. You got to get enough sleep. Can I tell you something? Folks, we need to sleep. Your body needs to repair. Your mind cannot function without sleep. Matter of fact, 24 hours of lack of sleep. If you go without sleep for 24 hours, studies show that you start to resemble somebody who's drunk. Yeah. Your reaction time, your ability to speak, your ability to walk, all of it. So you need sleep. You need to get sleep, and then drink enough water. Yeah. Folks, listen, I can't say this enough. I know that there's a lot of choices of soda. There's an entire aisle of sodas there, an entire aisle. Name it, from A to Z. There's all these soft drinks, right? They're full of sugar. They're full of things that you shouldn't be putting in your body. Gosh, water is amazing how it will refresh you if you'll drink it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So that's great. I'm with you there, brother. Second one, and I loved it when you mentioned this one. Huh? You share with people how to grow mentally.
Yeah,
so I've got to ask him to explain what it means by that.
Yeah, intellectual growth or mental growth, right? Here's the thing. We have a tendency to want to sit on a couch in front of a TV, and we want to have things come at us. Our intellectual and mental growth doesn't happen that way. We have to be an active participant in the growth, right? And when I talk about mental growth, understand we have two halves of a brain. Okay. Right half of a brain is our creative side. Left half of the brain is our logical side. So what are you doing actively to grow those areas? Now, here's the thing. You're in people are watching, listening. You have a job, you have a career. When was the last time you worked mentally in your head that you were reading something or learning something to be better at your job? When's the last time you went out and were at whatever job you have? When's the last time you went out and you said, well, you know what, Jay, I just, I'm a cashier. Wait. No, you're not. You serve people. So how is your communication piece with the people? Have you worked on your communication part? By the way, you have a leadership position because you're the person that they see that they're going to interact with because they're not interacting with the store manager. So how are you doing with your leadership ability? And you go, oh, okay. I mean, what are you doing to be better? How are you growing both halves of the brain? There's so many ways to do it. You watch this podcast or you're driving down the road, listening to this as a podcast, right? I hope you're taking mental notes because you know what? You should be. And I know people, I have clients who don't like to read. Sad, but they don't. But they will listen to books. So here's what I tell my clients. Here's what I want you to do. When you're listening to a book, I want you to write down 3 things in that time you were listening to a book that spoke to you. And let's talk about it and why. Because that's being an active participant in your growth mentally. You can you can learn a foreign language. You can learn, right? Foreign language will work both sides of your brain. You can learn, you can pick up a musical instrument. Try to learn a new musical instrument. It'll work both halves of your brain.
Wow.
So read a book, listen to books, take notes, listen to shows like, like the Possibility Guy, right? Or listen to the Possibility Action Network and listen to this show and listen to the people. And what are they trying to tell you? Take notes on it and go, okay, how can I apply that to my life? What can I do to change my life? That's working on your intellectual growth. I'm going to tell you something, Stephen. It's true story. Mm-hmm. So I've had this show, A New Direction, for 5 years now, going on almost 5 years. Do you know I still study Larry King?
I understand.
Right? Because you know what? I think he's the greatest host ever.
Yeah.
And I want to be as great as I can. So I still study him and Johnny Carson and the great interviewers of our day and even in past days before me. And I'm trying to go, what did they do that they could get people to open up and be engaged, right? Because I want to know, how can I be better?
Yeah.
Because I'm not satisfied right here. I got growth to do up here.
Yeah.
So that's the mental growth part.
Yeah, that's really great. And I'll tell you what, when I saw this one, there are other things, but this one really jumped out at me. And that is grow spiritual. Let me tell you, I was surprised to see that coming from you, but that's one that's special. Tell us what you mean by that, and how does a person, ratchet
spiritually?
Life? Yeah,
grow spiritually. Mm-hmm. You know what? We all live by faith. You didn't know you were going to wake up this morning. You just believed you would when you went to sleep. When you went to sip on your cup of coffee this morning, you didn't know if it was going to be poisonous or not. Was it going to make you sick? No, you just trusted it would be. Mm-hmm. When you put your key in your car and you turned it, you didn't know it was going to start. You just trusted it would be. You believed it would be. When you decided to have me on my show, we had never met before, but you had faith.
Yeah.
Right? You had faith. Right? We all have faith. Mm-hmm. We all walk by faith. We just don't like calling it that. And the truth of the matter is, when things go bad, we all run to something, believing that thing we run to is going to change us in some way or make things better, right? Think about it. We all run to something when things go bad, right? For some people, it's God. Yeah. For some people, it's meditation or nature or whatever it is. The question is it working? Yeah. Because you're going to keep running. You're going to keep running to that God and insisting that thing that you're running to. For some people, it's alcohol. Mm-hmm. For some people, it's drugs. Mm-hmm. For some people, it's bad things. But they think that somehow it's going to solve the problem or make the problem better because they got faith that extra drink that you're going to have, that pain numbingness is going to somehow take away your pain. And the truth of the matter is, what is taking away your pain spiritually? Because it's not in your head. It's not your body. It's not your emotions. And if you removed all that, what you have left is in here, and that's a spirit.
Yeah.
And there's the spirit of all of us. We know it's true. People go, I don't believe in spiritual things. Well, you have a spirit, because we have seen people who are able to will themselves to do things that go beyond their physical, emotional, and mental abilities. We get weak-willed and we succumb to temptation. We have a will that can make us do amazing things, and it's inside of us. Mm-hmm. And we connect with other people on a level that goes beyond the emotional, that goes beyond the physical, that goes beyond the mental connection. And we know that we have a connection that goes beyond that. And what is it? It's our two spirits connecting with each other. Mm-hmm. And so here is Stephen and I in two different locations, and yet we are connected. We're on the same page. Why? It's not because we feel good about it necessarily. It doesn't have to be. It's not because we're physically even close to each other. It's not because Stephen or I are are mentally on the same page. No, 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 no. There's something that connects the two of us in a way that is unexplainable. And we try to explain everything. And you know what? Leave room for the unexplained. Leave room for those things that you can't explain, because that area, that spiritual area where we make a connection with another human being who's not necessarily like us, who needs their spirit touched.
Mhm. Yeah, that's great. And along with that, you almost took my breath away.
Sorry about that.
You almost took my breath away there, but but look, but you associate those elements, mental, emotional, spiritual, to the word toughness. That connection. And I was just curious to know more about that. How does a person become spiritually tough or mentally tough?
Yeah, it's resilience.
Resilience. Okay.
Yeah, so that's the resilience part of it, right? Here's the third thing, right? We talked about I'm in control of my attitude, I'm in control of my effort or being excellent. Here's the third thing. You're in control of getting back up again. You're in control of that. I can't, you know what? People say, I need you to help me up. Well, actually, you start getting up. You ever watched a football game on TV, right? The guys don't lay on the ground and wait for the hand. No, they're on their way up, and then the hand comes and pulls them up off the ground, off the turf. You got to start it, right? You got to, if you want the hands to reach down, you got to start it. And then you kind of got to reach, right? But you got to be resilient enough to get back up, to get back in the game. And that requires all four areas, right? Spiritual resiliency requires that I have faith to know that even though things aren't going the way that I want them to go, that I believe so fully that it's going to happen, that I am convinced of it, even though I don't see it. I got to be resilient. I got to be resilient emotionally, meaning that I am 100% responsible for everything. I'm 100% responsible for what I say. I'm 100% responsible for what I do, but I'm 100% responsible for how I respond to whatever you say or do to me. That's emotional resiliency.
Got it. Yeah.
I have got to be mentally resilient, meaning that I have got to say there is more to learn and I need to learn it. I am not tired. I can learn more. I have not learned it all. I've got to learn more. I've got to physically push my body a little bit further. I've got to be able, if my clone from yesterday showed up, I've got to be able to face that clone in the face and go, I got you today again, because I'm better today than I was yesterday. And you can't take me out. So toughness is resiliency.
Yeah. Okay.
And the only way, here's a beautiful thing, Stephen, and it's beautiful in a very odd way. I cannot teach it to you. Life has to teach it to you. Because that's perseverance. That's why, you kind of have to be grateful for the trials that you have and the tests that you have in your life. Because you see, it's those trials and those tests that produce perseverance. And you got to let perseverance do its work, meaning that you've got to be a part of it, because that's where we grow. That's where we become more complete. That's where we are able to, the next thing that gets thrown at you is like, okay, here we go. Let's go. I'm on. I'm ready for it. Right? But it's life that has to teach you those lessons, because I can't teach you patience. I can't teach you perseverance. Life has to teach you those things. And so people will say, well, why did God give me, if God's out there, why did he give me this circumstance? Well, did you ask for courage? Did you ask for strength? Did you ask for perseverance? Well, you can't get it unless you go through something and get back up again.
Wow. I love it, Jay. Yeah. Now I want to turn to your books. You've written
Sure.
books. Yeah. And all of them intrigue me, but one in particular is with the primary title, Lessons from the Farm.
Yeah, that was my favorite.
Tell us about that book. What did you try doing it? What are some of these lessons that you allude to?
Yeah, there are 25 lessons in that book. And the first lesson in that book is sometimes you have to do things afraid. And it's such a signature of my life because we get stopped by fear, including writing a book, including take a risk in our lives. We get stopped by fear. And can I tell you something about fear, Stephen, and to the listeners who are out there? Listen, fear is never going to go away. If you're waiting to do something when you're not afraid, don't expect fear to go away. Fear's not going to go away. Fear is never going to be there. If you're going to be the hero or heroine of your own story, you have to do things in spite of the fear. That book was written because I did not realize that the lessons I had learned from the farm, I was actually practicing day by day.
Wow.
And it is kind of biographical in a sense, but it's also some of the things, because I had men in my life who mentored me, and I spent more time with them than I did my own dad, because I was working on their farms, day after day, and so I was working on their farms every day, and I was seeing them every day, not my dad. And so these men spoke truth into my life, and they were teaching me things that I had forgotten. And, here's the thing about lessons that you learn in life is that sometimes you don't realize what those lessons are until later in life. And that certainly is what happened to me, because I wrote that book, a few years ago, and, I was in my 50s. And then I realized, oh my gosh, look at all these lessons these guys taught me.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you shared those lessons in this book.
Oh, yeah, there's a ton of lessons, and there's applications. By the way, the 25 lessons in the book, Stephen, and thank you for bringing it up, by the way. The 25 lessons are something that anybody can do. These are not lessons that are, oh gosh, this is too, no. If you're paying attention, you can do them. I promise you.
Okay. Well, look, as busy as you are as a speaker or a coach, you also host a podcast.
Yeah, two of them.
What prompted you to start your own podcast show?
Yeah, that's an interesting story. So when I wrote my first book, Got Social Mediology, I did a lot of radio shows, interviews, just like this. I did a lot of interviews, and people were interviewing me about the book. There was one show that I did. It was a syndicated radio show, still is. It's called the Jiggy Jaguar Show. And he had me on the show, and he said, this is really cool stuff that you're talking about, the psychology of social media. And he said, how would you like to do a segment on my show once a week? I said, okay, that might be fun. So we did what we called the Internet Doctor segment. And I talked about the social media stupid of the week, something that somebody did on social media that was just dumb. We talked about the social media star. Somebody did something really great and good for the world. And then we talked about a social media tip of the week. And it was a 15-minute segment once a week. And I did that for about a year or more. And then Jiggy called me on the phone one time and said, hey, listen, I've got the gal who was Cassandra Ingalls on Little House on the Prairie, Melissa Francis, who was then the Fox Business News anchor. And we got an interview with her. Would you help me out on the interview? I said, sure. He goes, yeah, I didn't read the book. He said, can you get up on the book and everything? So I got the Kindle version of the book, and the interview was going to be in like just a couple hours. So I am skimming fast the book. We're driving down to our beach house. My wife's driving the car. I've got my headphones in. I've got my phone. And I'm doing this interview with Melissa Francis. 42 minutes later, I'm still doing the interview, and we're closing it off. And unbeknownst to me, we were only supposed to have 15 minutes with her. But she was having such a great time in the interview that she said, this is one of the best interviews I've ever done.
Wow.
And I did the whole interview. So I kept doing this for James on his show. I would interview authors and stuff like that. And finally, one day, this is, I don't know, another year later or so, maybe 9 months later, he said, you need to get your own show. He said, I hate to lose you, but you need to have your own show.
Mm. That's fantastic.
Right? Affirmation.
Yeah, yeah. And how did you, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, it was just, then I said, I don't know what I'm doing. And he said, I'll help you.
Okay.
And so I just did it afraid because I was like, oh, Stephen, my first few shows are awful. I just so bad. And I had to go to school and really learn. And when I say that, I studied everybody and everything and how to do it and what to do. And, then I progressively got better.
That's fair, but you're terrific now. I tell you, I'm going to study you. So how did you come up with the name for your podcast show, New Direction?
Yeah, New Direction. Yeah. So, my whole life has been helping people get unstuck and find a new direction in their life. And I always wanted to help people find a new direction because I needed to find a new direction in my life at the low points of my life. And I just needed a new direction. And so I thought, how great would it be if I interview best-selling authors from all over the world who talked about success and leadership in life and business and careers. And what if I interviewed some aspect of those two things, leadership and success? And what if I interviewed, and I did an interview show every week. And so I started reading a book a week for the show. And you know what happens when you read a book a week?
Tell us.
You grow.
Yeah.
And so, we're going on 5 years. I'll have over, 250 books read.
That's wonderful.
Right? In 5 years. And so when you do that, you're helping the world, but you're growing too. And that's what happened. And so it's called A New Direction, help people find a new direction in life, career, and business.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk to you about just a few of your favorites. Before I ask you one of your favorites, sure. I'm going to let you know what was one of my favorites.
Okay.
And it is Who's Eating Your Pie?
Oh, that's a great book. Eric Weir. Yeah. Great. Just did that show. That's a great book. Great book. You know what? Here's the beautiful thing about that book. There's a lot of books on finances and financial transformation that are out there. This is the first book I've ever read where he focused more on what is your mindset? What is it that how are you thinking about you and your finances and really understanding emotionally and mentally and even spiritually, how is money affecting you? And spent 2/3 of the book going through that before we ever got into, well, this is how you should invest or suggestions. And that was a beautiful book. Great book. Yeah, I thought it was a great book. Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That was a great show.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to ask you to single out any of the other guests, but that was one. But I also drew from that something about grow 1%.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about this 1%? Let's call it the 1% rule.
Yeah, isn't that great? Isn't that a great rule? In any area of your life, and Stephen has done a magnificent job, by the way, pointing out how I talk about physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. And thanks for doing that, Stephen. In any area of your life, you could grow 1% a day. Meaning, take the physical. Whatever you're doing right now, what could you do 1% more than you did today? What could you do? So like you said, well, I walked around the block. 1% more would be what? Walk around a block plus a little more. And then the next day, could you do 1% more? Right. And the next day, could you do 1% more?
Yeah.
Right. Now think about this emotionally. You're having problems in your marriage or your relationships. What could you change to be 1% better emotionally?
Yeah.
Could you be a little kinder? 1% kinder? 1% kinder.
Yeah.
Could you be 1% gentler? Could you be 1% better listener? Meaning that you have to close that thing that's important. Right? Could you do that 1% better? Or maybe it's intellectually. You haven't read a book in forever. Could you read 1%? Like just maybe a few pages. And could you do 1% more the next day? And then what about spiritually? Could you be 1% more invested Maybe you haven't prayed in a long time. Could you give up a minute?
Mm.
And then could you do a minute and 6 seconds tomorrow? Could you do a minute and 12 seconds next day?
Yeah.
Could you, if you got a devotional, could you pick it up and read just a page? Could you read a page and a quarter tomorrow?
Yeah.
1%. That's all we're asking.
Yeah.
An area of your life. And it changes.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, right? Isn't
That's
that beautiful?
beautiful. I love it. I love it. Yeah. Well, you have been an awesome guest, I'll tell you. But I want to ask you one final question. We've covered a lot, but is there anything else that you want to share with us that I have not already asked you about?
Yeah. There are people in this world who are good people.
Mm.
And there are people like Stephen, myself, I'd like to throw in that, who care about you. Because we love you. See, we understand that this world is a better place if we can help people grow just a little bit.
Mm.
And I want to tell you that you're loved. If you're feeling alone, you tuned in this show. You're not alone. We're cheering for you. We're rooting for you. We believe in you.
Mm.
I also want to let you know that if you're stuck right now, you're exactly where you should be. But it's going to be okay. Stay with it. Don't give up. Be honest with yourself. Be honest with someone else. Make yourself better because you can. It's within your power. It always has been. And you can do that. I believe in you. Stephen believes in you. And you know what? We're here.
That's fantastic. Fantastic. Jay Izzo, thank you so much. I'm honored that you said yes to my invitation to be on the show. You were a great guest. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Okay. You've been listening to the Possibility Action Network podcast. Our guest today has been Jay Izzo, the Internet Doctor. I'm your host, Stephen Middleton. Until next time, good day. You are not alone.